Just over the last couple of weeks, a couple of things happened to me. Firstly, on my travels, I happened to meet this lady from Ukraine. She was roughly the same age as myself. I learned that she's a refugee. She managed to bring back her mother, her daughter, and I think she brought back a son as well. But what hurt me the most was the fact that I learned that she was from Mariupol. Mariupol, it was one of those cities that was taken by the Russians around April, May of this year. The Russians fought for weeks to get that place. One of the reasons why it took so long was the fact that Mariupol is the place for the Azov steelworks, and that place was was very hard to take over on account of the fact that the Azov battalion were deployed there, and the Azov battalion was a battalion of volunteers who had been preparing for this particular scenario since 2014 when the Russians invaded Crimea. It really hurt me to realize that this time last year that family would be just coming out of COVID, the COVID restrictions, looking forward to a decent Christmas, and would be completely oblivious to the fact that their lives were going to be turned upside down the following February. Um, what I got from that was coincidentally, my Auntie Eileen had come over from the States. She's 80 years young. She brought her family with her, and herself and the rest of her, my aunties and uncles, had a gathering, a get together in, I was going to say our ancestral home, but it wasn't. It was the residence that we fled to back, and that's another story altogether. But anyways, the clan gathering was in the town of Kilty Clogher in County Leitrim. And for the first time in ages, I visited Kilty Clogher, and I couldn't get over how well turned out the place is. Because it's on the BMW region, it's the Border Midlands West region, they're open to a lot of funding, and they have a lovely new community centre. And what I like about the community centre is that there's rooms there that you can actually rent, and it's self-catering, and if you need a bed and breakfast or a place to stay on a weekend or something like that, it is a lovely service to have in your local community centre. Also noticed new playgrounds. It happened to be Halloween at the time, and it was lovely to see young people knocking on the doors and a couple of impromptu fireworks displays going on around the area. It was good to see so much life. Um, during the gathering, at one point, a neighbour called in to us, and she had in her possession a documentary. It was on a DVD, and we had to get a DVD player to watch it. But it was an RTE documentary about the tragedies that befell Kilty Clogher back in the late 60s. After we watched the documentary, we had a nice discussion about it, and basically what the documentary was about, out of respect for all the people that were in that documentary, I'll just keep it brief and say it basically involved the murder of a prominent member of the Kilty Clogher community. Consequent to that, the regional technical college that was in Kilty Clogher was blown up, and as a consequence to that, the bridge that linked Kilty to Northern Ireland was blown up by either the British Army or the Irish Army. I think it was the Irish Army that did it. But as a consequence to all of that, the town of Kilty Clogher withered up and died over the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, 2010s, the 2020s. Kilty was a place where neighbours stopped talking to each other, the community split, and the young people as soon as they were able to, they emigrated, they left the place. And it was as a consequence of all the troubles that happened in Northern Ireland. But at one point I turned to my uncles and aunts and I says, well, you know, Kilty is a lot different now. It's got new people in. There was all these different drives to bring new families into the area, and in some ways it has grown. The town is starting to grow. It's starting to get more vibrant. Can we just move on? And my auntie Eileen, she just turned to me, and she had no expression, she had no emotion when she said it. It was a categorical no. We'll never forgive. We'll never forget. And it took me back. How do you live with something like that, knowing that, you know, you're carrying that pain inside you for the rest of your life? Where's the sense in it? And that, from there, I learned a very important lesson. It's the lesson about mercy and justice. It's about the ability to get over horrible, horrible things and to just get on with life and watch life progress, knowing full well that the day you die is the day you take all your grievances to the divine authority. Now, it sounds very wishy-washy. It's religion, it's philosophy. You can say all you can say about it. But the alternative to that, the alternative to mercy, is no mercy. And violence begets more violence. And when the Ukrainians rout the Russians out of Ukraine, you know, if there is no mercy for the Russians, the ethnic Russians that are living in Ukraine, they're, you know, they'll never be able to live there again. And yeah, you could, it would be a good solution. It would solve a lot of issues to just turf them out, or far, far worse. But I would encourage the Ukrainians to show mercy in those issues, because it's very, very complicated. Right now, at the moment, Kherson has recently been liberated. Right now, the Russians have Donetsk People's Republic, they have Melitopol, Mariupol, Crimea, and a lot of parts there, the east and the southeast, is still up to be liberated. The Ukrainians are pushing very hard. They're looking to start another counterattack. And there's two reasons for that. Firstly, they do not want the Russians to consolidate their gains. And the second reason is that the things that have been happening, that have happened to the people in Kherson, in Bucha, in Lyman, the people in Melitopol and Mariupol and Crimea are suffering all those issues today. And every day they're not liberated is just another day of suffering. So this war will continue on, and it will be a hard war going forward. But at some point, the Russians will be routed from Ukraine, and then the Ukrainian refugees will come back and they will rebuild and they will make better. But what about the likes of the Ukrainians that are born in Russia? What about the Russians that are born in Ukraine? What about all the deported peoples? There's an awful lot of issues there that will affect the Ukrainian peoples over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 and beyond. So at some point, the Ukrainian people will have to realize that there'll have to be some random acts of mercy shown in those respects. There'll always be, you know, you can't, you have to show mercy, not forgiveness. There's an old saying, there's a Catholic saying, mercy is for the living and justice is for the dead. And what that means basically is whatever issues that have been done unto you, you have to live with them. You have to let them get on with it. You have to show mercy, confident in the knowledge that the day you die is the day that you can take it up with the divine authority and take it from that point on. So it's really on the Ukrainian people that they show mercy as soon as the Russians are out, you know, because there is still going to be an awful lot of suffering after the war for many, many years to come. That's all I have to say. Take care.